This is fourth 9 weeks, sheet A. We're looking at problem 9. And problem 9 should be, the name is negative exponents. And the description, if power is negative, move from, and he's got this, he's got top and bottom. So if it's on the top, you move it to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, you move it to the top. So in other words, if it's a negative power, a negative exponent, you switch it to the opposite, top or bottom, and make it plus. Cancel and rewrite. So it's a negative exponent. If the power is negative, move from top to bottom or bottom to top and make it plus. Cancel and rewrite. So I hope you see on A, where it says simplify, we have 2x to the negative 3y. When that problem is written like that, is that in the numerator or denominator? Numerator, because there is an imaginary line and a 1 on the bottom. Okay? Now, 2 is not to a negative power, but x to the negative 3 is. So what you would do is you'd go across a problem. If it's fine where it is, you leave it. The x to the negative 3 you would bring down here like this. And the y is perfectly fine right where it is. So then you look at the problem after you get everything moved to the right spot. You look and see if anything cancels. Does anything cancel with the 2? No. Anything cancel with the y? No. Anything cancel with the x? No. So that is your final answer, 2y over x to the third. All right. Number 9b. This one's going to take a little bit more. Let me go ahead and write my line. So I'm going to start left to right across the top. Is the 6 okay where it is? Yes. What about x to the negative 3? No. Nope, it needs to go on the bottom. So I'm going to take it down to the bottom, and it becomes to the power of positive 3. What about y to the 5th? Fine where it is. Okay, let's go across the bottom. Is the 9 okay? Yeah. Yep. X to the negative 2? Nope, I got to take it up to the top and make it a positive 2. And what about the y? Fine. All right. Does anything cancel from top to bottom? Let's look at the numbers. 6 and then a 9. What cancels out? They both cancel. The 6 becomes a 2 and the 9 becomes a 3. All right, let's go alphabetical order. The x's, I've got 2 on top and 3 on the bottom. How many can I cancel out? 2. So that's gone completely. And the 3 becomes a 2. All right, let's look at, oh, sorry, you're right. It becomes a 1. It becomes a 1. Okay? The y's, there's 5 on top and 1 on the bottom. How many can I cancel out? 1. So the 1 on the bottom's gone completely, and the 5 becomes a 4. All right, so let's try to figure out what we've got here and write it again in alphabetical order. We only have to do it once that way. So across the top, I put my number first, so there's a 2. Is there any x's left? No. So that means I'm going to put y to the 4th. And on the bottom, I'm going to put the 3 first. And what do I have left with the 3? X. So the problem is 2y to the 4th over 3x, and that would be your final answer. Any questions on that? All right, now we're going to look at quadratic formula. So we've looked at quadratic equations in the past, and generally you try to factor them, and I would always recommend that that is your first option. You try to factor And when it doesn't factor, you can always get an answer with the quadratic formula. Now, these, I'm not sure if he's got it set up that you could factor them or not, but he's saying we have to use quadratic formula, so that's good that he might have some that are a little easier for us to practice with. The name of this is Solve Quadratic Equation. So he's got quad EQ, solve quadratic equation with quad formula. Solve quadratic equation with quadratic formula. Here is his description. Find A, B, and C. Plug them into discriminant. To describe solutions. Plug into formula and solve. Okay, Julia.
How do you spell discriminant? Is it
D-I-S-C-R-I-M-I-N-A-N-T. Okay, so you might, if you've got room, you can write this here, or if you need another sheet of paper or write on the back. I got to give you some background information. Okay, if you've got space there, that's fine. A quadratic equation is of this form: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This is a quadratic equation. Okay, that's a generic one. So basically what I'm telling you is the coefficient for the x squared term is a, the coefficient for the x term is b, and the constant term is c. So when he says the very first thing in description, find a, b, and c, you've got to make sure that the quadratic equation is written in standard form. That means the squared term is first, x term is second, constant term's third, and it equals 0. If that's the case, the numbers go across the problem, a, b, and c. So when he says to find that, you plug them into, you have to find that first. So we're going to list A, B, and C first. Then we'll plug them into what it says is the discriminant. Well, right now we're going to write the quadratic formula down. Here we go. To solve it, you would say x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That is the quadratic formula. It would be in your best interest to memorize that, because you will use that always and forever from this day forward. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So, all right, so we're going to look at the quadratic equation in a little more detail. We're going to talk about this thing called the discriminant. Okay, the thing called the discriminant is this. It's what's under the radical sign, b squared minus 4ac. That tells you how many answers you have. So, here we go. If it equals 0, there is one solution, and that's kind of misleading because it's really the same solution twice, but it's one solution. Okay, if it is positive, so it is greater than 0, it's positive, you would have two solutions. And if the discriminant is negative or less than 0, you have no solutions because we're not doing square roots of negatives right now. So when you do these problems, he wants you to find A, B, and C. So we're going to list them. And we're going to actually do the discriminant first and tell how many solutions we're looking for. Then we're going to plug them into the formula and solve. Any quadratic equation can be solved with the quadratic formula. Like I said, if you're not told specifically to use the quadratic formula, I would factor first. Okay, so everything that's written there besides the name and description, does everybody have that written down? All right, so let me go back and do this. Okay, let's look at our first example. Our first example is 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. What is A? 2. What is B? 4. What is C? Negative 1. So we need to look at the discriminant. B squared minus 4AC. That means 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 1. So we've got 16 plus 8. Tell me you know how I got that. Negative 4 times positive 2 times negative 1. We good with that? Cameron? You were going to tell me? Okay, sorry. Yes. So you multiply all that together. And so it's 24. So if you look at your list, it's a positive number. How many solutions do I have? 2 solutions. So that's what you'll do. Okay, so here's my quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I would write that down every problem that you come to with that until you have it memorized. And now we plug in the numbers. So negative b would be negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 24 over 2 times 2. So negative 4 plus or minus. Okay, now square root of 24, is there any perfect squares that are factors in 24? 6 isn't a perfect square, but 16 isn't a factor. 4. So we're saying it is, so square root of 24 is really the square root of 4 times 6, right? So the 4 comes out as a 2, so 2 square root of 6, all over 2 times 2 is 4. Now, there are 3 terms in that problem, and they all have an even factor of 2. So I'm going to cancel them all. I'm going to cancel out that 2, cancel out that 2, and cancel out a 2 there. So my final answer is negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 6 over 2.